if figuring out how to be a better steward of your creative small business's finances, or upping your profit margin, whether that means upping your sales or not, if that is not on your annual goals list, you're probably one in a million, because most of us are trying to do one of those things. After all, poor financial management is the #1 reason that small businesses fail. So this may be where that battle is fought and won. Figuring out how to manage your income is key as an entrepreneur, and it was one of the #1 requests that we got in our annual survey this year. Thank you so much to the hundreds of you that responded. I love it. I also am obsessed with talking about this because I am a very unlikely story of even learning how to look at a P&L statement. I've been in business now 6 years, but my first 12 months in business, I didn't even pay myself because I was just so convinced that all that was gonna go away. I had no idea how to pay myself, so I just didn't. That created about as many marriage arguments as you think it did. I had to learn the hard way. I was also the girl who was constantly in math coach class from 3rd grade all the way through college, so I figured I was just never gonna be good at this stuff at all. Hit like if you have ever felt like that. But like I said, I love talking about this stuff now. So in this video, you're gonna hear how to create a business budget. I'm gonna take you behind the scenes of my Financial Friday workflow plan, and you're gonna hear my thoughts on when it's time to invest versus when it's time to rest. Click that like button if you're excited to jump into this, and while you're down there, click the subscribe button and the bell next to it. My name is Ashlyn Carter. I'm a conversion copywriter and brand and launch strategist for creatives. I am all about over here helping you figure out how to make more money with your words. I also do not usually sound this hoarse. Not sure where my voice is. I'm thinking I'm channeling Sophia Bush. Anyway, don't let that distract you from these great money tips that I've picked up along the way. Let's go, starting with how to create a business budget. Okay, so I just told you about how my first year in business was a mess because I had no business budget. I didn't know what percentage of what was coming in I needed to allocate into my salary. It was a tremendous and absolute blessing when I met my now very good friend, Shanna Skidmore. Shanna has created a tool called the Blueprint Model, and it's a curriculum that teaches creatives like me, possibly like you, how to arrange a business budget, how to pay yourself, and all of that is based on you finding your enough number. So I'm gonna start there. My #1 tip for you is figure out what you need to bring in. What does your take home need to be? In my opinion, it makes no sense to set up your business budget or your pricing structure otherwise. So that's step 1, set your salary off of what your take home needs to be. Now, I just mentioned Blueprint Model. Shanna's launching that again, and once again, I'm going to be taking a crew of creatives through it, giving you more behind the scenes of how I price things, how I run my business. Half is copywriting agency, half is digital products and offers. If you're interested in joining that, look down below for the waitlist. I also have a freebie on 7 financial steps that you can take in your business. Okay, knowing what your take home needs to be starts obviously with figuring out what's going out from your family or your personal spending plan. We'll call it a spending plan, not a budget, every single month. We can run the gamut on how to do this. There's so many incredible tools out there. I am, surprise, more detail oriented. So over the years, I have kept track of things. I like to know every single subscription that we have in our family. You can be as granular or as broad with this as you want, but I do keep track of it every year on a spreadsheet, and then I duplicate it from year to year. So I just have a spreadsheet with all the tabs at the bottom, but I know roughly what we bring in every year as a family and what's going out. My business plan actually starts there. It wasn't until I stepped into being an entrepreneur and ran my own business that I started to see the beauty in this. Instead of having this capped salary that I was always going to run against, I was able then to see more of a little bit of breadth and opportunity, because now I know what I need to bring in. So that brings me over to step 2. Figure out what the cost of doing business is, essentially what I need to have to keep the lights on over here. This is your overhead, all your software expenses, all your cost of goods, payroll. Now, when I first started, all it really was a few software subscriptions, my laptop, me, that was about it. Now I've gotten so detailed that anytime I join anything new or have any kind of software that I sign up for, I go straight to my business blueprint. I pop open this tab on the spreadsheet and I add that cost in because I want to know every single month what it costs to keep the lights on. By the way, this big spreadsheet also includes my projections for the year, like my forecasts. It includes my cost of goods, and it includes my business spending plan. Okay, step number 3. Now you want to set your pricing and how many slots you have or how many units of product you need to be sold. You want to set that based off now that you know what you got to have to keep the lights on, you know what you need to make, and you're also going to take into account industry rates. Here's my little hot, spicy take. Just because you love something doesn't mean you need to charge your worth. I kind of hate that phrase sometimes. Or do what you love and the money will follow. And there's economic principles out there that we have to pay attention to. Maybe nobody wants what you're trying to sell. I won't get too much into the weeds of that and pricing, but I was actually playing around with the concept of doing a video on how to raise your rates, how to raise your prices. If that's something that you're interested in, comment below. I was talking to a couple of best friends about that. Recently, I thought this would be a great YouTube episode, so let me know if you want that. But basically, if I know that my services-based business needs to bring in $100,000 a year because I'm thinking 30% goes to the house, to the business, I'm thinking 30% is going to the government, 30% I get to take home. Again, these are very rough numbers. And I know my package is $4,000, then I need about 25 clients a year, which boils down to 2-ish a month. Does that sound absolutely exhausting? Do I even have time for that? Maybe I need to raise my prices. Maybe I need to raise the value of what I'm giving them. Again, comment below if you want that video on raising your prices. But that's a basic snapshot of how I like to work backwards to figure out what my business budget needs to be. And then off that, especially after you do this year after year after year, you can start to set your projections for each year. That's when it gets fun. Here's some quick rules of thumb I've learned over the years. I try to stay in the sweet spot of about 60% costs and 40% profit. So that means monies that I can reinvest into the business, I can invest somewhere else, I can count as owner's draw, I can give away. You may be able to run more at like 50-50, which is awesome, especially if you have very little overhead. If you have a bigger team or a lot of contractors, payroll is going to be a chunk. That is definitely the most expensive part of my business. It is for a lot of people. Maybe you're more 70-30, 80-20. Talking to my fellow math coach class goers out there, I didn't know that breakdown or really understand why I needed to keep it in mind until about 3 years in business when I started to understand it. Nowadays, I track this every single week and I'm looking at our numbers all the time, which brings me to the big part of this video where I wanted to take you behind the scenes and tell you about my Finance Friday workflow. When I say that, it's always a hashtag in my head, so we'll say Finance Friday with a hashtag. Okay, stick with me through these steps. I saved the best one, paying yourself, for next to last. So every Friday, the theme in my business is Finance Friday and some admin work too. So I come in here to my office, sweatshirt, no makeup, coffee cup full. I sit down at my desk and the first thing I do is throw myself a softball. Actually, both our personal finances and then business too. So personal first, remember, because everything I'm doing starts off of what does Ashlyn need to take home? What does enough look like? I need to know what my enough number is so there's something I can hit and then rest. So I start with personal and I'm going to categorize expenses. Remember, back in the very first part of this video, I told you about how I know what I need to have my take home be, and I know overall what our personal spending plan is. So for me, what's been easiest over time is to use a tool like mint.com. So every Friday I can take a couple of minutes, look back over the past 7 days and categorize different expenses into the budget area they fall in. So was that Target expense baby formula, goes into baby supplies or groceries, or was it a gift for somebody and it needs to go in that budget? There's a myriad of these apps out there and most of them learn your habits, which is so nice. So they start to know that every time you go to a certain place, it needs to be categorized as such. Okay, flip then to the business side of my expenses, pop open Slack, and I look for Madison. Hey Madison, our bookkeeper, and I make sure that I've answered any questions that she may have as far as filing our business expenses. A bookkeeper was, I need to look, I think it was one of the first 3 contractors that I hired in my business. So for the first couple of years, it was me and a spreadsheet. I didn't even have QuickBooks or anything. I would just look in a spreadsheet and categorize different expenses that we had. And by we, I mean I, because there was no other employees. Again, that's changed bookkeeping after I learned enough to be dangerous and I realized how much time it was taking, outsourced that. But I make sure that I've touched base with her and answered her questions. So step 2 on Finance Friday, pay off all credit cards. Yes, I said credit cards. Personal ones are paid off weekly, looking at you, Williams-Sonoma. But in the business, if you're disciplined enough to pay things off in full, it can definitely be of value to you to get a credit card, I've learned. So pretty much every single thing I pay for in the business except for payroll, which again is a fancy word, but that's just contractors and employees if you have them. On the 10th and the 25th of every month, I pay it off in full. If you're thinking, that sounds like profit first, that's where I got that idea from. There's some great point systems and reward systems out there. So if cashback or airline points because you travel a lot for business, if that's something that will behoove you and save you money in the end, the credit card thing can be great. Step 3, the next thing I do is make sure that accounts receivable is paid up, which is a very fancy way to make sure you're paid for what you've done. Our clients pay in HoneyBook, so I look in HoneyBook and make sure that there's no delinquent payments I need to check in on. I do the equivalent of looking in your pocket to make sure there's not $20 lying around. I'll Make sure our PayPals are zeroed out. Also, here's a pro tip. Once we got to the point where we had so many students on the digital side of my business that it was me and my team that were sending out emails every single month to people whose credit cards fail, because that's what happens when we have all these digital cards. I started working with a crew named Gravy. They've been so great. They handle all that for us, because if you have digital payments, you know that cost of doing business, part of it is that you never will recoup some of that money. Just that's what happens. So they've been great. Also, on these Fridays during this Finance Friday workflow, I check in with Tia and make sure that everything in there is going swimmingly. Basically, here in step 3, I'm making sure that all the money that's out there is put into the pot, which brings me to step 4. The fun part, this is the envelope system, or if you've read Profit First, again, some of this is gonna look a little familiar. I took what I learned in Sheena's blueprint model and I kind of blended it with this. So here's what I do. I basically have an envelope system. So all of the different payments are going to one big folder. It's an account, but I call it a folder. And so every single Friday, after I've done these first 3 steps, I get to log in and see how much is in that folder. That is a great gut check, because now that I've been doing this for years, I know if that number is low, that kind of worries me. I know if it's tracking high. It is a fantastic gut check. Whether it's clients, digital courses, affiliate fees, anything has gone to that folder. I'm looking at that, and now I start to separate it out. I put 10% to profit. I put 15% to taxes, 55% to operating expenses. To sound cool, I call that OPEX. And I put 20% into an owner's draw folder. Again, I'm saying folder. These are accounts. But if you've ever run into Dave Ramsey's curriculum, the concept of envelopes makes visual sense to me. So that's what I do. Now, again, in this book, I'll link it below. Mike McCulloch's, I think that's how you say his name. He tells you how to find those percentages. But the concept is that you're taking 10%, just 10% of what comes in every single week, and you're setting it aside not to be part of your business expenses. Over time, that number grows and grows and grows, and it's really cool to watch. More on that in a sec. But the last big step of my Finance Friday routine, I used to do on Fridays, actually do on Mondays now. We have a spreadsheet in my business where we track our KPIs. So all the big numbers and ways to measure success in different areas of the business. So every single Monday I look and I see what we have brought in sales year to date, what has gone right out the door year to date again, and then what that percentage is. Now that goes way up and down depending on launches and a lot of other factors, but it's a good weekly report card. I have a copy of that business scorecard and tracker in the copy bar shop. Rachel, my integrator, keeps us on that like clockwork. It's a great report card. Okay, last thing, I wanted to talk briefly about when to invest and when to rest, because over time, if you do start to take this little 10% and set aside, that begins to grow. And I looked up recently and realized I have no idea what to do with that money. This year, I'm starting to learn about more what to do with that, making sure I've got a good 3 to 6 months of business savings in there. But after that, what do I do? My friend REA has done a great course with Julie Stoian called Future Fund. I'll link that down below. That's been another next step. After you go through something like the blueprint model and you have this working and operating system done, after that proves to be fruitful, then kind of the next step, at least as I see it, is figuring out then where to invest. So I wanted to point out that tool. It's been something that I took in January of this year, and it was so helpful for me. Related to this topic, I did a couple of videos a while back on the best things I've invested in my business, so I will link that down below. A spoiler, it's typically education and coaching, but with a little preparation, some self-discipline and dedication, and wisdom from experts, you will be set with a great financial system to run your creative small business on. If you're looking for more, don't forget that doors to Sheena's blueprint model open soon. I'm taking a crew through it again, and please comment below any questions that you have. Don't forget, request a video about raising your prices if that would be helpful. I'd love to know. All right, that was a lot of math talk. I need a cup of coffee. I hope that you enjoyed this video though. Thanks for sticking with me and my raspy voice, and I will see you in the next one.